At 11 a.m. on the 11th of November 1918, the guns on the Western Front fell silent. After more than 4 years of continuous warfare, the Allied armies had driven the German invaders back, having inflicted heavy defeats upon them over the preceding 4 months. In November, the Germans called for an armistice, suspension of fighting, in order to secure a peace settlement. They accepted Allied terms that amounted to unconditional surrender. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month attained a special significance in the post-war years. The moment when hostilities ceased on the Western Front became universally associated with the remembrance of those who had died in the war. The first modern world conflict had brought about a mobilization of over 70 million people and left between 9 and 13 million dead, perhaps as many as 1/3 of them with no known grave. The Allied nations chose this day and this time for the commemoration of their war dead. On the first anniversary of the armistice in 1919, 2-minute silence was instituted as part of the main commemorative celebration at the new cenotaph in London. This silence was proposed by Australian journalist Edward Honey, who was working in Fleet Street. At about the same time, a South African statesman made a similar proposal to the British cabinet, which endorsed it. King George V personally requested all the people of the British Empire to suspend normal activities for 2 minutes on the hour of the armistice, which stayed the worldwide carnage of the 4 preceding years and marked a victory of right and freedom. The 2-minute silence was popularly adopted, and it became a central feature of commemorations on Armistice Day, Remembrance Day. On the second anniversary of the armistice in 1920, the commemoration was given added significance when it became a funeral, with the return of the remains of an unknown soldier from the battlefields of the Western Front. Unknown soldiers were interred with full military honours in Westminster Abbey in London and the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. The Atonement in London attracted over 1 million people within a week to pay their respects at the unknown soldier's tomb. Most other Allied nations adopted the tradition of entombing unknown soldiers over the following decades. After the end of the Second World War, the Australian and British governments changed the name to Remembrance Day. Armistice Day was no longer an appropriate title for the day which would commemorate all war dead. In Australia, on the 75th anniversary of the armistice in 1993, Remembrance Day ceremonies again began the focus of national attention. The remains of an unknown Australian soldier exhumed from a First World War military cemetery in France were ceremonially entombed in the Memorials Hall of Memory. Remembrance Day ceremonies were conducted simultaneously in towns and cities all over the country, culminating at the moment of burial at 11 a.m. and coinciding with the traditional 2-minute silence. This ceremony, which touches a chord across the Australian nation, re-establishes Remembrance Day as a significant day of commemoration. 4 years later, in 1997, Governor-General Sir William Deane issued a proclamation formally declaring 11 November to be Remembrance Day, urging all Australians to observe 1-minute silence at 11 a.m. on 11th of November each year to remember those who died or suffered for Australia's cause in all wars and armed conflicts.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved. And now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Australians wear a red poppy on Remembrance Day for 3 reasons. Firstly, in memory of the sacred dead who rest in Flanders fields. Secondly, to keep alive the memories of the sacred cause for which they laid down their lives. And thirdly, as a bond of esteem and affection between the soldiers of all allied nations, and in respect for France, our common battleground.